Harrowings Live podcast with the Intrepid Editor Press, and we were talking about connection and
Uh-huh.
the newest of the Long Wave Home podcast that just came out. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday it dropped, yeah.
All right. And you were talking about when we were talking with Gabriella Caresi over in Hungary, in
Mhm.
Fit, I think it is.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yes. Was it yesterday or the day before? Anyway, we did
Yeah.
sort of an impromptu little chat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was Martin Luther King Day when I heard it, and I tend to listen. I don't watch a lot of podcasts. I in my car or when I'm doing other things, so I don't really watch a lot. But, um, what she was saying about how great the internet is to connect people, she talked about the other author that they wrote 3 books together and never met, or before they met, they finally met in person, but how the connection was so strong. It was like they already knew each other. They were more intimate with each other online in that connection than they might be if they knew each other, if they passed each other at the market or whatever. And that resonated with me because I've actually done that. I wrote a screenplay with a guy I never met before. I've worked on other people's work without even meeting them and to kind of collaborate. Of course, I was hired to do that, but the connection that's made is what's relevant. Many of these people I'm still in contact with. This connection that you have going on here, I think it's beautiful. You
Thank
know, and that's the theme of the first episode is connections. It's called transmissions, but it's all about making different kinds of connections. You know.
Yes, and, this is a really important theme for me too. I was reading a book years ago,
Hmm.
on my commute back and forth from Crystal City, where my job had been, and to where it went to in Bethesda, shortly after I got the apartment right across the street from where I was working. It's kinda like one of those dope moments, and
Yeah,
but it
big
allowed
moment.
me to read Pattern Recognition by William Gibson while on the commute. And
Hmm.
pattern recognition involves a sort of modern day situation where right after 9/11, this woman is involved in her business, but also involved in a community of people that track footage that's just showing up on the internet in little clips, and
Hmm.
they get really obsessed with it. And there was all these people who never met each other who become
Hmm.
really embedded with each other and end up
Right.
meeting eventually towards the end
Right.
of the novel. And this is something that I think is a part of our internet transformation that we didn't have when we were younger, right? Our
Hmm.
connections were really local,
Hmm.
face to face, by the
Hmm.
telephone perhaps, but we didn't
Hmm.
have these
Maybe a pen pal. Right.
borderless kind of things. In
Yeah.
fact, you and I both have a sort of connection back to the Grateful Dead scene, and John Perry Barlow, David
Hmm.
was telling me, was the first one to tell them that we were really a community without borders, you know?
Hmm.
Those
Hmm.
first ones that didn't have a geographical location.
Hmm.
So, yeah, being spread out all over the place, being able to reach out and connect to people across national boundaries. I mean, I got that really too in 1994, right before I got my first email account,
Hmm.
when I went to the Goethe Institute in Prien Chiemsee in Bavaria. And there I was thrown in with a whole bunch of people from all over the world. A lot of
Hmm.
people in the Eastern Bloc who were working to get their German skills up because they were going into the diplomatic service for their various
Hmm.
countries that had just gotten independent, in the Yugoslavia when that broke up.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, it's a good way of building relationships across humanity, I think, and it's where our
Hmm.
will come from, I believe.
Hmm. Barlow was onto it way ahead. I mean, the Grateful Dead, that community. I mean, I used to be a taper, and so I would trade tapes with people I never really met, or I just crossed, paths in a parking lot somewhere. I change it. Here's my address. Here's your address. And I would swap tapes with people that I didn't know. It got to be friends with a lot of them. Eh, and then 10 years later, the internet comes along and it's like, wow, this is the same thing, but better. Of course, it gets commodified. It is what it is today, which is part shit show, part beautiful thing. It's
Are you familiar with the Electronic Frontiers Foundation?
Yeah,
Or
EFF, I'm a
yeah,
member, yeah, yeah.
you're a member? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and, it just, it but Barlow was I think the one who kinda saw the similarities, and that's why he put the EFF he was a spearhead there, you know? Um, once again, the hippies had it right, you know?
And we still do, I think, and I'm 100% hippie according to a test my wife and I took. She's 0% hippie.
Uh-huh.
Do you have that situation? Do you is your
Ye very much. Kelly she's always, "I'm not like you. I'm not a deadhead." I mean, her one Grateful Dead show that I was taking her to was, at Deer Creek the last summer, the last tour, and it was the show that got canceled because of the gate crashers the night before. They
Oh, wow.
crashed the gates, the band was pissed, they were, eh,
Hmm.
they canceled the show,
Wow.
you know? That was her one show that she was gonna go to, And I took her to see Further and Dead and Company and Phil and Friends, and we've gone to Terrapin, and we've done stuff, but
Seeing the community.
yeah, and she's 14 years younger than me. So the community that she grew up in isn't the same one that I mean, I started going to see the Dead in 1974, and she wasn't even born yet, so it was like, yeah,
I was 10 years behind you, I was 84, but I just went to
mhm,
2 shows back to back, and then that was enough. I hitchhiked down from Ashland to Charlotte, North Carolina,
uh-huh,
which was about, I don't know, 400-mile
yeah,
hitchhike,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's the experience you want, right?
right,
And then,
right.
being picked up by different people and, you meet them, you may never see them again.
Hi, Deborah. Yeah.
Yep, Deborah Mozzarelli has joined. Are you familiar with Deborah already?
Yeah, we follow each other. I love reading her posts. She shares a lot of really good things. A lot of
Okay, let's
people
watch.
yeah, I definitely follow her. She's cool.
Yeah, and
She's a
all
sh
y'all are probably cool too, and we get to know each other, that we got Dawn
Mhm.
Kayen, Simon Campbell, Caitlin. Caitlin, friend of yours, you said was in Chicago?
Caitlin is we often tease Kelly and I tease that she's our adopted foster child. We met Caitlin when she was, I think, 15 years old, and she's an artist. We moved into this apartment building that her mother was the manager of, and she came knocking on the door one day. She had heard that I'm an artist, and she'd like me to look at some of her work. And I did, and it was beautiful. It was great work. And so that kind of started the relationship. But now it's like her mother's passed away, and Caitlin lives in Chicago. We talk pretty frequently. I
Hmm,
text more than talk with her. Kelly talks with her all the time, you
interesting.
know? Yeah. And I love Caitlin. She's my daughter, one of my daughters.
Yeah.
Um, it's like that kind of relationship. So
That's
I'm
good.
so happy you're here, Caitlin.
That's a good relationship to have, family,
Yeah,
It's, I
that's
think
a
the
good
extended
connection.
family
Yeah.
is, worth connecting with. When I was talking to Gabriella, we were talking a lot about her injuries, and we've talked a lot about your situation. We were talking before we got
Mhm,
on here about,
mhm,
sleep apnea and the different
mhm,
types of apnea that are available. I had no
mhm.
idea that you could actually have one that was driven by just the brain not sending signals to your lungs to breathe.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's. Um, do you find that sometimes connections made between people are tighter than the ones that are forged by blood? You know,
Definitely.
um, I've got cousins that I barely know, but I've got friends that I couldn't live without. You know, and it's sort of like making your family by choice as opposed to DNA, blood, you know, just because we're in the same family doesn't mean that we're going to be close.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do. I'm going through a realization that really, when it comes down to it, my family and I are probably never going to be in communication to any great extent. I've made some attempts, but for one reason or another, there doesn't seem to be much of a response back. A little bit.
Hmm.
I have a
Hmm.
little family reunion group, and one of my father's first cousin's kids
Mhm.
replies to me once in a while with things
Mhm.
and, sends messages, but we haven't seen each other in years. I ought to go back up there because, and try to connect because she's got one of the cabins in this complex, a little, cinder block sort of not hardly cabins really, but these buildings that were put up by my great grandfather and his brothers. And my grandfather and my father built another one that my grandfather sold. There's three of them out in the middle of the George Washington National Forest of Virginia.
Mm.
And it's like ancestral. So
Mhm.
it's like one of the few things that's left.
Mhm.
Those that haven't been, the other homes and such they had were sold off, but the Gills
Mhm.
control what's called Hog Camp. This little
Okay.
thing on the North Fork of the Piney River, beautiful country up there, but a little remote. It's a little hard to get to. The road leading up is basically just like a trail,
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
but it was something I used to do when I was a kid. We'd go up there for family reunions. There's pictures of all these Gill family members,
Mhm.
like a whole clan of us. But that
Wow.
connection, yeah, it's kinda gone the way of the buffalo, I guess, somehow. And I'd like to see it reestablished, but I'm only one person, and I've gotta have everybody else get willing to do it too.
And you've got a finite period to do it. I mean, it's not like, you know, I my brother and I are close, very close. I was close to my mom. She lived with us the last couple of years of her life. I've always been close to mom. My dad and I had a very contentious relationship up until, he hit 65 and I was in my 40s. And we've been, become closer since then, the last 20 years or so.
Huh.
Um, and that's about as far as it goes. I mean, my uncles, my dad's brother and I are very close. He has no family. He lives in San Francisco, so I'm I see him more than I see my dad. I haven't seen my dad in a few years. I just saw Larry a month ago. He
Yeah.
came out for a couple months ago for Thanksgiving. So but other than that, it's like my mom's brothers, well, I was close to them growing up, but they live in Arkansas, and now one of them has passed, and the other one is still there, but he's 80 or something now, and, his kids and my other uncle's kids and I don't do social media, so I don't see the Facebook posts. I don't
Oh, I see.
I don't use that tool. I was tired of being used by that tool, so I kinda dumped it about 10 years ago,
Mhm.
and, um, and now it's just like, I mean, we're friendly. It's not like there was any, kerfuffle that made everything fall apart. It's just drifting, different paths, different attitudes, different lifestyles. I was always the kind of, um, I don't want to say black sheep, more like weird sheep, weird tie-dyed sheep. Nobody else in my family other than my brother got into that scene at all,
Oh.
Um, but we're friends, but we're not friends, we're friendly. We're amicable, we're amiable, but we're not, you know,
Yeah.
and it's a little sad. I mean, because we were really close when we were all kids, because we were all thrown together and we had no choice. And I was the ringleader and made all the other I was the oldest, so I made all the kids, I
Yeah.
was left to be responsible, and I taught them how to climb rock walls in the lobby of the apartment complex and, do shit that they shouldn't be doing. So we had a lot of fun as kids, but yeah, you grow up and things change.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's easy to get distracted, and it has to be there's some degree of effort required to
Mhm,
be connected to people. I think we're
mhm,
doing that on Substack, a lot of us are, by
mhm,
putting ourselves out there, responding to each other,
mhm.
and, that's building community in itself. It isn't quite as the same as what I've been able to do on other platforms yet, though. For
Yeah,
instance, the ability to form discrete groups is
mhm,
not really there in the functionality so far as I can find. But I like having
mm,
one-on-one conversations. Now you know who Gabriella is, and
mhm.
that's over in
And you
Hungary.
know who Deborah is and
Yep.
Caitlin and right. And and I kinda like that it's wide open. I mean, because there are some people on Substack that are shit stirrers that are,
Are there?
oh, yeah. Yeah, a couple of the people that I follow get beat up by them because they're trans or because
Oh,
they're too liberal or whatever, it's like
yeah.
and it's not that I don't have any interaction with these people, and some of them are quite nasty. I'll report them for hateful speech or whatever,
Really?
but I don't sit there and report, "Oh, look at this guy," I don't have time to be the police.
Yeah,
Um,
my thing is just to report scammers or people who are obviously asking me like, "Where are you?" Well, if you wanna know
yeah,
where I am, read my Substack.
exactly. I get and they always seem to be attractive young ladies too, at least the ones that I
Exactly,
keep getting, you
exactly. I don't
know?
know, the young ladies get, attractive young men coming on to them.
I don't know, but I think they maybe think I'm an easy mark or something, because
There
I'm an
are.
old guy on the internet. Uh,
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but there are those of us who are easy marks for,
mhm,
the attention of an attractive young lady, uh,
mhm.
and we won't know the difference. I
And
guess
the other thing is they
nobody
always
knows
try
your
to
dog on the internet, right?
no. Yeah,
That old New
you know,
York
the
cartoon.
they keep trying to get me to, like, I've engaged with a couple before I realized what this is, and both of them wanted me to, "Oh, why don't we go talk on WhatsApp?" And it's like, "No, I don't do WhatsApp. I don't touch the Meta products at all, and I've got Signal if it's about a privacy thing or, but I kinda use that for work, but if you're not comfortable talking here, and I don't use the direct messages here like as a texting kind of thing. It's just a way
Right,
to
right,
get like you and we're setting up the show. So I'll
right.
DM you just to do that. But otherwise it's not like, "Hey, Hal, how you doing? What are you wearing today?" you know, what do you do for a living? It's like, yeah, I don't if you want to know all that shit, read my Substack. It's in there,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We pour ourselves out on Substack for it feels like and I like the authenticity of most people's writing there. I don't run
Me
into
too.
a lot of the negative stuff that you just mentioned. It's
Mhm.
not my radar, um, but I imagine it's out there for us if we, go.
Mhm.
I do see it on, YouTube, though, because these can get pushed to YouTube, and I found most of
Mhm.
the comments are pretty negative and kinda nasty.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's like somebody told
Yeah.
me id of the internet comes out in Substack and YouTube
Mhm.
comments.
Mhm.
Not impressed,
This
but
mm-mm,
it's okay.
mm-mm,
Positive, negative, I'm willing to listen to any type of constructive criticism, uh,
mhm,
and I think that there is room for it. I hired
mhm.
a coach, to figure out what to do with this stuff, and we came up with some pretty good suggestions, but I don't know. I'm now thinking of going more
Hey,
toward
Michelle.
kinda conversations. Go ahead.
Mhm. I was just saying hi to Michelle, it came up.
Oh, you know Michelle already?
Not personally, but I
Hey, yeah, Michelle.
yeah.
Like I say, you can tell us who you are, how you are, where you
Yeah,
are. Those are always
ask
interesting things
questions.
to
Yeah.
start conversations, and if you have questions about what we're doing here, we've been talking about connection,
Mhm,
transmission, because what
mhm.
we're doing is transmitting a signal through the noise.
That's right.
Peace, AJ. Um, and the, interesting thing to me, though, is that these random connections quite often seem to be like old friends,
Mhm,
and there's common ground with just about anybody. Kinda like when I
mhm,
went to Germany and I was running into these people who'd been raised in Croatia. And,
mhm,
I sat and talked only in German because we didn't have
mhm,
a common language other than German,
mhm,
over the course of an evening about his experiences in the War of Liberation in which
mhm,
his brother had been killed.
mhm,
And, that kind of, weight that lived experience can have. We were talking about a loss you experienced actually when you
mhm.
were 17, was it?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, my best friend, you know,
And
but yeah. For me, when Todd died, I didn't really understand the gravity of it. You're 17 years old. What do you fucking know about life? Not much. All I really understood was, man, if you can die when you're 17, you can die anytime at all.
Right.
There's no guarantees here. There's no this may be a one-shot deal, man, it's like, that's the only lesson I got out of it, and the rest of it was LSD therapy. I took a ton of LSD for about a year and a half, just all the time I was selling it, I was getting it, I was
Hmm.
and that I went to go look for Ken Kesey because I needed an answer from one of my heroes,
Did you
and I
find
knew
it?
where he was. Eventually, on that trip, I found Ken Babbs,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
yeah,
Got
yeah,
Bab's book back over here.
yeah, I've got a couple of his, and I still communicate with in fact, Zane Kesey, I just sent him a text, after the pilot episode dropped because I refer to both yeah, I'd met Ken and both Kens, and, I didn't meet Kesey until I guess it was, 80 New Year's Eve '86
Okay.
at in Oakland at the Grateful Dead New Year's Eve shows,
Sure.
and quite literally ran into him. I was tripping balls, and I go around a corner and boom, right into this big barrel-chested guy. "Hey, you're Ken Kesey." He was like, "Yeah, I suppose I am," and he walked with me for, maybe I don't know how far. It seemed like a long walk, but I don't think it was that far until he slipped behind, past 2 security guards in a curtain, and that was it. But he did say something to me that I carried. I told him I was a writer and, I'm going through some transition, but I wanna be a writer like you. You've helped me
Yeah.
shape my life. "Well, kid, if you wanna be a writer, avoid fame at all costs." And I, like, stopped, and that's about when I was like, "What the fuck does that mean? Avoid fame at all cost?" And I was already leery of fame, I was already kinda like, yeah, fame ain't
Avoid
so
fame because, kids like you will come up to you and try to get information out of you,
yeah. Well, I mean,
is implied.
yeah, exactly. And, but I mean, that kind of was the initial contact with him. And of course, I wrote to him, and this is all pre-internet years, so I wrote to him for years and just sort of, um,
Yeah.
can you guide me any advice? I'm
So he
seeing somebody.
it helped to live better. Ugh.
Mm,
I was 22
um,
once, I remember that.
yeah,
Go ahead, though. You were saying about you wrote to him, did he write back? You were in
yeah.
correspondence?
I did, problem the part of the problem was at that age, you move a lot, I was in Chicago for a while, I went to North Carolina, I went to Arkansas, I went to California, I went to, all over the place, and so I didn't always get letters that he'd sent because the forwarding didn't always, but I did get a couple, and I had asked him at one point about, what is that? And he said, just the thing of it with him was he wrote Cuckoo's Nest when he was about 22 years old.
Right,
He was, a grad student
right.
and got famous for that, and that was, like, the only thing the guy wrote after that as far as the public. "Ken Kesey? Who's that? Cuckoo's Nest? Oh, yeah, I know who that is." But if you say, "Ken Kesey," and I said,
Sometimes a great
"Sometimes there's a
notion,
great
though?
notion." Yeah, the Demon Box, how about that?
Mhm.
Last Round, they don't know his other work. They don't know about the pranksters. They don't know about
Really?
the
Hmm,
yeah, you know, more often than not, when I mention Ken Kesey to just anybody, unless they're part of that community, of course, us in the Deadhead community, we wouldn't have a Deadhead community if it wasn't for Kesey and the pranksters,
that's right.
you know? If it wasn't for the electric Kool-Aid acid test, there would be no Grateful Deadhead community, maybe there wouldn't, but it was definitely an integral part of what became Grateful Dead.
Right,
They took what they were doing in 1966, 65, 66, and put it on the road, you know, moved it around so it's harder to nail down and corrupt and secret society kind of feel to that's the way it was all the way up until the Touch Heads came along. When Touch of Grey hit the top 10, everybody was into the Grateful Dead, and all of a sudden you have all these people that were there for the party, man.
what did
You
you say
know,
after?
"They got some Sid," and it's like, "Yeah, leave me alone. I'm not gonna give it to you even if I had it,"
Yeah,
But because you don't know, because that's when Club Fed started happening and, we had law enforcement infiltrating
The
the
scene.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
you
was
know?
really interesting, that incident that happened at the church in Minneapolis, I think, last
Mhm.
weekend. Did you see hear
Right. Sure, yeah.
I was watching, a couple of commentators talking about that, and they said that the guy with the beard who was really in people's face very much, there,
Mhm,
I think he calls himself the woke farmer or something, uh,
mhm,
they spotted him as probably a Fed.
mm,
So, club Fed,
mhm,
somebody who was there to actually do everything he could to stir it up and
mhm,
create chaos so
mhm.
that the Feds would have an opportunity to do what? I'm not really sure. But
Sure.
yeah, I mean,
And
it's
this is
very
nothing
hard
new.
to tell what's not a false flag anymore,
Yeah.
for a lot of these kinds of interactions we have and have had. But, there's trust
It's
that you can trust but verify, and
right.
trust up to a point, I think, that is important. Trust between people. I'm trying to
Mhm.
build that up in these conversations, in fact. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's the infiltration, that's nothing new. I mean, talk to the Black Panthers, talk to, Jerry Rubin and Abby Hoffman, talk to, the
Well, it
Chicago
was
7,
MK
you know,
Ultra that started
and
Kincaid,
MK Ultra.
and
Yeah. Yeah,
they left
exactly.
it elsewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Maybe by
and,
design.
uh, you know, but I keep thinking about the person who asked the question at 22, the
Yeah,
best life ex I would say live every day like it might be your last, but that doesn't mean go crazy. That means embody it, enjoy it. Look at the little things. They're as important as any big event that's going on in your life. You know, I would
yeah,
say honesty is a really important thing to have early in life. Learn to respect and honor truth. And what is truth? Well, in this day and age, it's kind of hard to tell. So the only truth you can really be sure of is your truth. Be truthful about who you are, what you think, you know,
personal integrity, right.
exactly. In
Don't do
integrity.
things that violate your own sense of personal integrity. Everyone
Right.
needs to have, I think, sort of a code you can live by. What is that song? There's some teach your
Um,
children, right?
right, right,
Have
right.
a code that
You
you
know,
live by. Yeah,
yeah.
so
Um, Actually, it's funny you should mention integrity. That's the next episode that comes out in February on the 21st.
it's in progress?
That it's about integrity.
Good.
And it's called The Kerfuffle, The Wallet, and The Kite, and it's about different forms of integrity, how integrity works in the real world. What do you do when nobody is there? When it's just you and your own, do you do the right thing? Do you, or not? And how we bend integrity sometimes, our own sense of integrity, because of you're just gonna have to listen to it.
Gotcha, but societal pressure on
I'll come
people
back
to
next
act
month,
a
we'll talk
certain
about that.
way, to behave a certain way,
Mhm,
tends to be very damaging to at least my course in life, I think. There was a lot of times when I felt like I was supposed to be something that I definitely knew I was not. So I
mhm,
was true to myself, and as
mhm,
a result, I ended up going askance, and I didn't have any clue where I wanted to go. I still sort of don't, but I'm kinda
mm.
more comfortable with it now. But the
Yeah.
feeling of being an imp inhabiting the animal that carries me
Mhm,
from dawn to dusk and back again.
mhm, mhm,
And, that it's a ride, I'm looking out at the world and I'm seeing things, and I'm like, "Okay, that's the way it looks to me, but I could be wrong."
mhm,
Always staying in the space of maybe logic.
mhm.
You familiar with that concept?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and who knows? Maybe we're right.
Mhm.
Maybe it's different than that, but we can enjoy the view as we're going along through it, and
Right.
try to be good to each other, you know?
Yeah.
That was what I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
unity, really, of
yeah. Yeah.
deadheads and such. I don't really like being amongst the crowd much at shows
Mhm,
anymore and things like that. It's not my scene.
mhm,
I like to get together with friends of mine, that's fine,
mhm,
and I actually do that in Philadelphia sometimes, but
mhm,
I don't know if I'm gonna go up there again or not. Depends on the income, when it comes
mhm,
to it. These days, things are shifting, and it's
mhm,
not as easy to land a gig anymore.
mm,
Um, I've got some irons in the fire, we'll see what happens, and I've
mhm.
I've got a lot of different ideas percolating.
Yeah,
And, yeah, in the meantime, I'm kind of enjoying the ride.
yeah,
And that was a line out of one of the songs too, wasn't it?
yeah. I
Maybe
may
going
be
home.
going to hell in a bucket, but at least I'm enjoying the ride, you
And what
know?
a great video that was.
And the other line that reminds me of is, "I sure don't know what I'm gonna go for or what I'm going for, but I'm gonna go for it for sure."
Yeah.
That idea is I have no idea, but man, I'm gonna do it,
Yeah,
We'll
throw
see
myself
what's down that road when I get there, but that's the direction,
yeah, without a net, stepping
Mhm,
off the edge and hoping that the ground is under you and left foot,
mhm,
right foot, I think is the way
mhm,
Tasha put it during the memorial service for Bob Weir.
mm,
We're gonna talk a little bit about that towards the end of the show, but,
yeah.
we're at that. Um, you said you had a couple of Bob's stories, actually. We're about 20 minutes or so from the end, so
Yeah, well, actually, it's a really good story about connection. I encountered Bob Weir a couple of times
mhm.
without really meeting him. I mean, I think it was I can't remember. I think it might have been either Duke University or maybe it was University of Matt. It was a college show, and there was this big gymnasium thing, and it had like these open windows, and it was up, I don't know, maybe 12 feet or so, and we can hear guitars inside. And I was with my best friend Todd, and Todd was, he had, I forgot what the condition was, but his pituitary gland, he was 6'2" when I met him at 12 years old. When he was
Wow.
17, he was 6'5", big kid, real big guy. So we're at this Grateful Dead show, and he's like, "Get on my shoulders. Let's look and see what's in that window." And I looked up in the window, and sure enough, there's Garcia and Weir. Garcia's got his back to us. Weir is looking at Garcia, but I kind of popped my head in this window, like look around. And he said something like, "Hey, Jerry, there's a kid in our window," right as Todd is like losing his footing. And I'm like, wow. And I fell down. That was it. That was the whole encounter, And then the next time I saw Weir, that was like 78, I think. And then the next time was like early 80s at a hotel that rumor had it that Weir was, or that the band was staying at this hotel. So we kept trying to get in, like, they wouldn't let us in through the lobby. So we're waiting for somebody to come out one of those side doors and slip in and walking down the halls and everything. And we see Bob Weir get into an elevator at the end of the hall. And we all like, start running, and the elevator closed. He was gone. Never saw him again, kind of thing. But then I did see him again in 1988, 89. I was doing my internship with a company or an organization called the Earth Network, which was founded by Howie Samuelson, who was a legendary director producer. He did something called the Underground News back in the '60s, which was truly underground, and they syndicated on UHF stations all over the country. He had people like Jerry Rubin, Abby Hoffman, Saul Alinsky, um, El, I don't know, it's a whole bunch of like people, radicals from the '60s on the show, and they had the Grateful Dead on their show on Underground News.
Yeah.
So he had kind of a connection to it. Bob Weir, in the meantime, was promoting the Rainforest Action Network,
Uh-huh.
RAN,
Sure.
which was a real big thing back then. And he was, doing like a press tour kind of thing,
Mhm.
and I wasn't I was just the intern. I was the PA, production assistant who lugged in the equipment and set things up and everything, and so I wasn't really privy to sitting there talking with Weir or anything like that. But
Right.
Bob and Howie knew each other, so they were having a conversation, and I'm kinda setting up lights and cameras and stuff like that, and there's a guy behind there, who came with Bob Weir. He was their PR person. His name was Dennis McNally.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
And so we're and even like the microphone that we had on at first had like a static or hum in it, and we had to swap it out for a different one. And
Right.
I've got it. I'm walking up, and some girl comes and takes it from me, like, "Oh, you can't get within feet of Bob Weir. You can't clip that on him." And she went and did, And while she was doing it, I just said, "Hey, Bob, I love your music. I've been following you guys, and great work." And "Oh, thank you," he said, and very polite and everything. And that was the whole interaction with, actually talking to Bob Weir. So I wouldn't really say it's like a connection. It was just a brush with greatness kind of thing. But then I go back behind the camera and I wasn't the cameraman. I wasn't the sound person. I just stood around waiting. And McNally and I started talking. And
Yeah.
McNally and I still talk. I sent him a Christmas thing. I just sent him a
Sweet.
notice that, yeah, he asked, he wants a copy of the shows. So it's like, okay, sure.
Cool.
And and I mean, McNally has been really a great advisor to me when my book came out, how to promote it. And, he back in the day when we were running the Split Apple, we were in summer of '95, that last tour, we were concerned that we were gonna have problems because, that tour was a horrible tour. Jerry wasn't doing well health-wise.
Sure.
It was grueling hot everywhere that they were playing. At Deer Creek, we had the gate crashers
Right.
and the show canceled. The next show was in St. Louis, and there were some kids that were sleeping underneath a porch that collapsed on them. One of them died, several of them were injured. It was like, and then they came to the Soldier Field, and things were out of control, and we were at the Split Apple, we were about 6 blocks away from Soldier Field, right on South Michigan Avenue. We had a huge 6,000 square foot loft, and we decided to there's no place for deadheads to stay in Chicago. I mean, at the time in 1995, a single room was like $250 a night, which was outrageous. I mean, and they would not let like we used to in some places, yeah, fine, we'd all stay, we'd have 10 hippies in a hotel room sleeping on the floor and the chairs, and you know,
Mhm.
and the hotels in downtown Chicago, they don't let you do that. There's only 4 people, 4 guests or 2 guests per room, they had, and so we said, well, $5 a head, you can pull up a space on anywhere on our floor, and we had food because there's no convenience stores down there, in downtown Chicago, and everything's so expensive. So we kind of scaled it for deadheads and became like a sanctuary for and we had 750 deadheads stay with us for a weekend. But I got worried that it's going to get out of control. So I dashed off a note. I went over to Soldier Field. I went and talked to this guy, Ramrod, who I knew that was one of the Grateful Dead longtime roadies who knows me. He came, can you get this to McNally? Is he with you? Yeah, yeah, he is. Can you get this to him? I'm really worried. What do I do? Have him call me. And never heard from him at the time. About 3 months later, I get a call from McNally. So did everything work out? Was there any problems?
Nice of him to check in.
But that's the point. He's still, followed through on the connection. I wasn't
That
some
makes a big
freaked
difference.
out hippie guy. I was his friend, D. Phillip, who
Yeah.
was, worried about the welfare of these people that I was caring for the weekend.
Mhm.
And no, we didn't have anything really bad happen. We had one guy who, after the event, he sold glass, bowls, bongs, things like that. He had left one of his cases at the Split Apple, and he came back at a time that nobody was there. So he kicked in a door to get his shit so that he can get on the road and get back to Virginia or wherever he was from, you know? And it was, and it but and I kind of I would have maybe done the same thing if I was freaked out about my hundreds of dollars worth of inventory. You know, nobody's answering the door, and
Got the other option. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, it wasn't it, yeah, we had to,
Wasn't like
it
he broke
cost us.
in there to just trash the place or anything.
He didn't take anything else. He didn't ruin any. He just went and got his stuff and you
Got it.
know
Yeah.
got up. And I wasn't there. Kelly and I, that was the week after the Grateful Dead show, we eloped to
Oh,
Vegas,
in
you
'95.
know, in '95. Yeah.
And that was the last
Yeah.
show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we didn't know that at the time. I mean, Jerry died a few weeks later, a month later, I think it was, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, I think they played those shows July 7th, 8th, 9th, right in there. And Jerry died the 9th of August. So
Yeah, it's pretty
yeah,
hard.
that was his last shows.
Yeah.
And that was devastating. I mean, when Jerry died, it was like John Lennon when he died.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, this. earth-shattering thing. Bobby passing, it's sad, but we had clues, you know? I was gonna go to the 60th thing in Park, and I decided not to. I talked to some friends that were there, and they said, "Yeah, Bob put on a great performance and everything, but man, he didn't look well. He looked weaker,
Well,
white."
a little
You
chemo will
know?
do that to you.
Yeah, you know?
That's what he had. I don't know exactly what the situation was, but it sounded
Y
very similar to what happened to my father. He had a radiation that took care of
Mhm.
the cancer, but it basically left him with lung damage that took a year and a half to kill my dad, but it took a little less time for Bobby, it sounds like.
For yeah, yeah, exactly, and, you know, so it wasn't I mean, I'm sad, but at the same time, it's life. He was gonna be 79 this year, you know? I
Right.
mean, that's what happens, and at least he went out beautifully, you
Yeah,
know?
and Phil too.
Eh
You know,
yeah,
they've
and
got a
Phil
lot of
too,
extra years.
yeah, exactly, Phil, oh my god, that guy's amazing. I mean, I thought we were gonna lose him 20 years earlier, you know,
Oh,
before
I
he
think he's
got the
98, right?
transplant.
He had the liver transplant,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, he got hepatitis, I think, from needle use, like shooting some
yeah, yeah,
back in the '60s.
yeah,
So,
you
yeah,
know?
you know, if you're, young, that's another thing, probably don't shoot speed. Try to avoid getting hepatitis, if you can possibly manage it. Um,
Yeah,
there's so many different things that I can point to that, I didn't know, and I don't think anybody really knew. I mean, or if we did know it as we were beginning to learn about tobacco, for instance,
mhm,
you know, when I was growing
mhm,
up, it was like Mad Men. Everybody
mhm,
smoked all the time.
mhm,
When it comes down to the other substances, I would avoid them for the most part
mhm,
now, particularly for the young,
mhm, mhm,
because I know that when I was 15, my motivation was just shut down. You know, my
mhm,
I could no longer really get behind the idea of achievement that I
mhm,
was, a very high achiever up until that point. Then I could like,
mhm,
"Oh, what's the point?" And
mhm,
and that could be just being a teenager too.
mhm,
Anyway, getting back to the celebration, I thought that was beautiful. I saw part of it. I came back home after giving my mom lunch and then caught
mhm,
part of that, and I picked up from Chloe and, Monet's talks before their mother that it sounded like it was rather sudden and unexpected that
mhm,
succumbed to the damage from his lungs when he did, but
mhm,
the way I prefer to I hope I go quick. So
mhm,
I really don't wanna linger, for a long time with
mhm,
continuing,
mhm,
with ill health, but, when we're set free to some extent
mhm,
from our mortal bodies, I think it is a cause for celebration at some level, and there was a great deal of celebration. It was, fun to
mhm,
see, Joan Baez out there,
mhm,
dancing with Chloe and
mhm,
doing all of that, extroverted kind of celebration of a life well lived.
mhm,
And, the fact it's final, you
mhm,
talked about losing your friend who boosted you up to the window, at 17, and I lost a friend who was 14,
mm,
50 years ago yesterday.
mm, oh,
It really just you know what? It just seemed to me that we didn't have the skills to know how to deal with it and to
right,
help the children deal with it, who had been, friends with this kid who fell through the
mhm,
ice lake and
mhm,
drowned with another kid.
mhm,
There are 3 kids, actually, 1 got out, the other 2 didn't,
mm,
and, the finality of that, just the fact that it could happen to you at any time like you were talking about earlier, I think
mhm,
it's me, and that we have breath in the body now
mhm,
and get the opportunity to play through the creation that we're co-creating together,
mm,
with a
mhm.
bit of enthusiasm and having more enthusiasm for it because we're alive. Did you ever catch, and we might have talked about it before, the Golden Globes, award in 2019 given to Jeff Bridges when he got up
No,
on
you mentioned that in a
yeah.
previous conversation. Yeah, I did go back to look at it, but I'm not much
You're
of a
alive, man. That was the main
right,
thrust.
exactly, exactly. We're here now, you know, um,
Mhm.
and it kind of plays into that whole thing, like, you can't be looking at what went on behind you, previously. You can I mean, sure, remember it and honor it, take the lessons from it, but you can't be watching it. You can't be living you can't go down the road when you're looking at the rear view mirror all the time. You're gonna wreck the vehicle, right?
Right.
You know, and at the same time, you can't be living in the future. You haven't gotten to that destination yet. Just focus on where you are now. Look at the signs you're seeing, the beauty that's around you, the people you're in the car with. Don't worry about when you get there and everybody gets out of the car and goes their own ways, or you're going to do whatever you're going to do there. Sure, think about it in a abstract sort of way, but you can't live it. You can't, you know, you can plan for it. Just map it out, and have a plan when you get there, and then when you have your plan, you work your plan, you plan your work your plan, kind of works like that, Um, at least that's been my experience and my observation of a lot of people that do things in life that are successful, whatever level of success or metric you're using. They they plan it and then they work it, you know. And when it doesn't work out, you pivot and find a workaround. Don't doesn't mean stop it. And this is all good information for a young 22-year-old who's wondering what to do in life, by the way.
Yeah, I would think so. Now, there are other angles to that too. In fact, you reminded me of a few things from Bob Weir. One was he said he never planned. He just,
Mhm,
acted in the moment
mhm,
with
mhm,
whatever was in front of him, but I don't think it's entirely true. I mean,
mm.
to some extent, you have to. Or he had people who helped him plan, that's for sure. He
Right,
had to have people
right.
around him who were constructive and helping him, like the when he put the, microphone on him, and you couldn't get
Mhm.
10 feet from him or whatever it was.
Right, right, yeah.
The other one was planning for the legacy to last at least 300 years. He expected the music
Mhm,
to be continuing 300 years from now, that people would still be playing it and still know
mhm,
words, Not that he always knew
yeah,
words.
right, right.
You ever see that
You know
clip where some kid is asking questions from the floor and they're putting them up to the band backstage,
mhm,
like set break or something? It's like, "Bobby, when, if ever, are you going to get the words to Truckin' right?"
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
was good. That was a
that
cute
is.
clip. I think it was in, Dead Ahead, the video,
Uh-huh,
which
uh-huh,
was one with Dead Set and Reckoning,
right, right,
which were good albums. I mean, that's what I cut my teeth on really in 1981, 82, 83. That time period was when I was first, sort of buying those records and listening to them on repeat and realizing, "Oh
mhm,
my god, this kind of modality they're playing with here, it works really well with tin whistles."
mhm,
You can play anything,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
hard to hit a wrong note.
yeah. Because, the wrong note, it's not the wrong note that matters, it's the note you play after the wrong note, and that was always it's like sports in that way, you don't know
Spiral
what's gonna
David.
happen as they play it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, my album was, Terrapin. I bought that brand new when it came out.
All right.
I
78,
I yes, I think
77.
77, 78. Yeah, and that was the first album of theirs I bought. I'd been listening for 5 years, and I was like, "Well, gotta support the band," buy an album, and I bought almost every album from there all the way up until I think the last one I bought was probably Without a Net, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Well, now you got
but
all Dave's Picks things to go through.
yeah,
Dick's Picks, then
and
Dave's Picks, and
the funny thing
they
about
broke
Dave's
the world
picks or
record.
Dick's picks or any of the picks is I'll go and I've got 2,000 cassette tapes. I'll go, "Oh, this is that show." "Oh, this is that show." You
Oh,
know?
yeah. I wanted to touch upon that too when you were mentioning the tapers, and you were a taper, right?
Mhm.
Um,
For like 3, 4 tours, that's what I did. I mean, I was also the grilled cheese guy in the parking lot. I did that for that's how I made money.
right, right.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of this interview David Gans was doing on KSKQ with,
Uh,
Hollywood and Adams, a morning show. Maybe we talked about it before, I don't know. But during the interview, David had tipped off those of us who were watching his live streams during the pandemic
mhm,
because
mhm,
all of his work dried up. He went live streams with a tip jar out to keep
right.
going. And when he mentioned that he was doing the radio show, I tuned in, and hostess mentioned that when she was on the East Coast over near, Ellicott City, near Baltimore,
Mhm,
some guy left a little slip of paper underneath her windshield wiper saying, "Hey, I like the stickers on your car. Do you wanna trade some tapes?" And that
mhm,
phone number on there opened up all this opportunity for her, and
mhm.
one thing led to another, and here she is interviewing David Gantz on, you know, Oregon's
Yeah.
radio station, and he's, been doing the Grateful Dead hour for so long there.
Mhm.
When she mentioned the guy's name, I realized, "Oh my god, that's the guy who was at my wedding, married to my wedding singer."
Wow.
And so I called her
Wow.
up and said, "Hey, Holly, guess what?" You know, "I
Yeah.
know that guy." And
Yeah.
they had not talked in 30 years, but they talked
Uh-huh.
soon after, and I was a radio show guest the next, uh,
Uh-huh.
and then I got her to get Jay Blakesberg on,
Mhm.
and, some other people that she didn't really know that scene too much, oddly.
Right.
And you know Jay, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, of
hard not
course.
to know Jay. And,
Yeah.
I've had him on the show here, and I had
Okay.
David Gantz on once with my vocal coach, Sonny Triple, and
Uh-huh.
hopefully I'll have them back as this year unfolds. This is the beginning of the year. I'm glad to have you
Mhm.
back again.
Mhm.
This is our 3rd time, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And, the other thing I noticed, Hal, is it was exactly 1 month ago today that I was on last time. It was the 22nd of December last time that we talked, and here we are, and I thought, "Maybe that's it. The 22nd of every month, I'm gonna do Hal's show."
Well,
And,
right after your
this is the
release,
truth.
right? You
Yeah,
just
sure.
released, and
Yeah, we drop it that's the way it's set up now is every the 21st of every month, a new show drops,
it
and
is for
The
everybody
Long Wave
listening.
Home. Yeah, it's called The Long Wave Home. It's exclusively available on Apple, although if you're clever, you can get it off of Acast, but it's Apple right now. We're also syndicating it to community radio stations, like we've got KVMR here in, Nevada City who's gonna be playing it. I've got a station in Davis, but community college level kinda public radio, but not really public radio. Not We're not gonna be competing with Ira Glass and, This American Life, but we're kinda that same sort of slower show. It isn't like a podcast like this, although we do interviews or we do talk to people. We use little vignettes, kinda like old time radio. We use music, kinda like FM radio, late night FM radio. We do a man on the street thing, kind of person on the street sort of bit where we take the question out to the community and talk to the people in our community. And we're kind of hyper localized on Nevada County, this area of Northern California, but the adjacent area, which we call the heart of gold country. This is where, I mean, it was just 20 miles south of here that gold was discovered.
Huh.
And we're still mining for gold here. We still find it. It's not the precious rock kind of gold, it's the hard gold kind of thing that we're finding here. So, it's called The Long Wave Home, and it drops a new episode every month on the 21st, and I've written 42 of the shows so far, and they're about humanities, virtues. Like this one was about connection. The next one's about integrity. The one after that is about calibration, recalibration, birth, rebirth. The idea that, everything is a cycle that we're always creating. And then one after that is about fidelity and the importance of fidelity in the world. There's one about truth. There's one about love. There's one about all kinds of 42 of them all together, you know. And then
Wow.
it's sprinkled in there. There's a couple of different ones. Like the first episode was kind of autobiographical about me because that was the idea is I'm going to introduce myself to the audience and only do it once. That show is eventually going to get pulled off the platform. It'll be the rare one you can't find anymore
Well, I'm
because
gonna
I don't really want to be a guy blowing his horn on the radio. I'm not that kind of personality. I like putting the glass to look at other people's things and just sort of interpretate, I'm the commentator of it. That's the character that I play. Um, but we're gonna have a live show. We're gonna do a time travel show where I've got all these clips from the past that we're gonna integrate into the show, and it's definitely it's just audio, there's no visual to it, um, because I kinda like audio better than video, personally. It's just where I cut my bones in radio and recording, and I've got this little recording studio here that we're working in, which is gonna get bigger. We're looking for a new place, and one of the things that we're building is I need a big studio, like, I could bring a band in. This room is not that room, this is just the control room size,
I see. So you're
but
not doing the tiny desk concerts.
no,
You
no,
you
no. I've got a mobiles thing. I've got this mixing board here. It's a 12-track, digital recording system, and, in the 3rd episode, the recreation, the one on calibration, recalibration, we're gonna be going to, do some live recordings of a band called Checked Out. They're, we like to tease, they're world-renowned, but, locally adored band. Checked Out is they're going to be featured. Their music will be featured in the episode, and I'm going to be interviewing them, kind of like 1963 BBC Beatle recordings or Rolling Stone recordings, where the interviewer is sitting there in the studio with the band, and the band plays live right there, and then afterwards they talk with the band, and so you hear things like Hard Day's Night, but it's not the same Hard Day's Night that we hear on the record,
Right.
that kind of idea, getting the little riffs or maybe it's like Mutual of Omaha and we're seeing them in their natural environment, and but the idea is they're not there to promote anything. They're just there to talk about the idea of how their albums, their music evolved over time, how they calibrated it, and then they had to
Right.
recalibrate. How, Griffin, the guitar player, singer, songwriter, comes in with a piece, and the other guys in the band put their parts in it, and it changes the song into something else. In the process of doing that, and how it's important, or how it sometimes limits us, and that's what we're going to be talking about in the 3rd episode that comes out in March, but
Interesting.
yeah, so, we'll have some special things like that in there too. The live one is gonna be doing this kind of show live will be and we're not gonna be doing that until probably next year, but, you
And you
know
do have it semi-scripted, so
Oh, yeah, I've got like I said, I've got 42 it's not screenplays, 42 scripts written already. I've got it all. It's just a matter of kind of tweaking things as they because we're not really talking about topical things. We're talking about permanent things, talking about human values, things that make us what makes a human, kind of things like integrity, honesty, virtue, um, love, hate, for that matter. I mean, some people are completely shaped by hate, you know. It's just we're that's what the show is about is exploring our own humanity, um, and trying to get everybody in whatever side of the political spectrum we're on, everybody kind of on the same page, how we can meet
yes.
in a common ground. Because, you know, whatever you say about what's going on with the authoritarian regime that we've gotten in place right now, you know, it's not going to be just the people that are upset about it that is going to remove that, is going to stop it. Um, we're going to need some of the people that are people that some people just hate because they wear a red hat. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, I live in an area where I've got MAGA neighbors and I've got, you know, flaming liberals too. It's sort of like we're very purple, although it goes blue most of the time. County in California.
Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting, because I was talking to Denise Perrant not too long
mhm,
back, and I hope to have her back on. She's with Brown Eyed Women, drummer. Do you know her
mhm.
already? No?
No, no.
Um, she played with, John Kadlecik's Furthermore a couple of
Okay.
Thanksgivings ago as well. She's a good drummer,
Yeah.
and we were talking about her vision for that is like in that, Without Loving the Dream, will never come
It'll
true.
never come true. Right.
Has this lovely heart with the 13-point lightning bolt down the middle. It's
Of
blue on
course.
one, red on the other. We
Right.
all come together on the dance floor,
Right.
and
Right.
so much of that is true of the community
Mhm.
that the Deadheads generated. It's got its right wing, it's got its left wing, but they all come together on the
Right.
dance and
Exactly.
the music plays the band, if you will, and
Mhm. Mhm.
plays the audience too, and that's that energy between the 2. Don
Mhm.
Woods did a great conversation about that. I don't know if you've caught it yet, about that right after Bobby died, about
Mhm.
when he was up there playing and he would realize when they started hitting certain things, the energy came out to the audience, then came back and informed what he would play next.
Mhm. Mhm.
That kind of almost telepathy that's happening
Mhm.
between
Mhm.
everybody in the community,
Right.
simultaneously is something that is
Right.
possible, I think, with us human beings in our tribal shamanic kind of way when we get down
Mhm.
to what really unites us. We're
Mhm.
not that evolved from our forebears who did
Mhm.
ecstatic dance, around the
Mm.
fire to the nature, you know?
Well, just like the thing what Weir said, you just cited 300 years from now, they're
Mhm.
still gonna well, of course that's true because they were doing it 300 years before the Grateful Dead came along, weren't we? It was
Very
like,
much,
it's not
much more.
it's right. You know,
There's an old
it
phrase from down my way that Virginians will dance or die.
mm, there you go,
Yeah,
you know? Yeah, for sure.
and,
But
everyone played instruments practically, when you think about
mhm,
Jefferson and his violin. I don't know if
mhm,
you've seen the musical 1776, but the violin plays a particularly significant role in his relationship with his wife, Martha. I think
mhm.
a lot of that's fictionalized, but still made a nice little, relief in the middle of it with live Dana.
Well,
Go ahead.
and it may be fictionalized, but it probably came from some kernel of truth.
Yes.
That's kind of what Kesey was talking about a lot is, you know, truth. I wrote a piece about that recently. I had seen A Complete Unknown and compared it to the truth of it. I mean, I know a lot about Dylan. He's one of my heroes, and how accurate was it? And I mean, it is, but it's also kind of got this dramatization thing, this thing that gets you involved in the story of it, the love affair between him and Joan and Sarah, who isn't called Sarah in that, but his dynamic as a young Bob Dylan, you know.
Or even the younger
I
one, right?
Right.
Susan.
But the idea is that the truth lives in the stories that we tell about what happened, not so much the facts. The facts are a clinical thing. It's like an autopsy. Um, the truth is more like the obituary, you know, the putting it into more human kind of things, and it's important to have both, you know. And I kind of fall on that storyteller side of things. I mean, I don't, sure, I write fictional things, but they're based on truth,
Yeah.
certain given truths, certain truths that are inalienable, right?
I definitely am an unreliable narrator of my own life. I wish it was true, but, we'll see what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, shall we
Yeah.
wrap up? I
Yeah, yeah, I think,
just noticed it's 2:10.
yeah, and same thing here, and I'm amazed that I haven't had my grandson come rapping at the door. Last night last night was every week on Wednesdays, we do a sleepover slumber party, and we sleep in one of the extra bedrooms, and it's just him and me. We'll put on Peppa Pig or something, which is special because he doesn't watch TV before bed. Unless Papa's there, and then we sit and cuddle, and then kind of the same thing waking up. He likes it when I'm there. I wake up hours before him, but I'll make sure I'm just there in the bed drinking my coffee, reading, writing, whatever, so that he can wake up and there's Papa. And I do it because there's going to come a time, probably not too long from now, I won't be cuddling with that little guy anymore. He'll be 6 or 8 or 12 and be like, "Get out of here, Papa. Hey, Ethan Faulkner. I love that guy. Ethan Faulkner writes some amazing things. He just stopped in to say hi with some coffee. Thank you." But
Yeah, well, great to have you. I hope you get a chance to watch it. We had a pretty good conversation, I think, and that little guy
Yeah.
will probably remember that for the rest of his life, though, which is really
Yeah,
a
and
nice
I know that
give.
this this little guy, I mean, part of me is still 4 years old too, and
Right.
I remember it for the rest of my life, you know? I mean, we're kinda like trees, right? You know, all these ages that we've lived are like the rings inside of us, and if we're careful and we work at it, we can tune into when we were 4 or 8 or 12 or whatever, you know? It's like, it's in us, we lived it, so it's gotta be part of our whatever, not DNA, but our emotional landscape, you know? So
Yeah, it's kinda like when I saw Bobby talking at the, memorial service for Ram Dass about running into Ram Dass when he was 18 years old. That
uh-huh.
18-year-old was still within Bob as he was getting
Right,
the story out.
right,
Yeah, and I
precisely. I mean, it's the same thing. I met Babs, I was 18, I was confused, I was broken, and he told me the only thing Babs told me that time was, "Well, keep your dauber up." And I was
keep
like,
your dauber
"Okay."
up.
Right. What the hell does that mean, you know? It took me 30 years to learn what that meant, but it stuck with me when I was 18, and it's how I sign off everything now, you know? Take care of yourself, be safe, and keep your dauber up, you
And on
know?
that note, I think we'll wrap it up. So thank
Yeah,
you
and
so
Ethan,
much. Sorry?
I keep whatever it is, keep it up. I'm reading the comments here, Ethan Faulkner.
Yeah.
He's a kid I wanna collaborate with this kid. I think he's brilliant. I think he's got something there. I'd like to, you know cheers, Ethan. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Alright.
Keep and hey, Ethan, if you wanna be my guest here, do what,
You should.
Philip's doing, hit me up.
Yeah.
Alright,
Yeah.
thanks so much.
Alright, man. I'll talk to you
Well, right.
maybe on the 22nd next month, but I'm
Alright,
sure we'll talk through.
verticalwar.com. Got it. Talk to you. Yeah,
Okay.
22nd next month, I'll set it up now.
Okay.
Time of day good for you?
Yeah, it is. It
Alright, well,
is. Alright, you guys. Everybody, have a great week. Take care of yourselves.
and keep your dauber up.
Be safe. We'll talk to you